I could feel it again. That strange heaviness deep inside my chest, the kind that doesn't scream, doesn't cry, doesn't break loudly, but quietly tightens around your life little by little. Most people think life collapses with a bang, but the truth is, it collapses silently. Not in storms, not in disasters, but in tiny invisible moments when you stop choosing yourself, stop trying, stop moving. And the worst part? You don't even notice when it begins. Leo stared at the ceiling that morning as if the entire weight of the world was pressing down on his lungs. It wasn't sadness. Not exactly. It was something deeper. Something quieter. Something more dangerous. A slow, invisible drowning. He whispered to himself, "Why do I feel stuck, even though everything looks normal?" And that one question began pulling him into a truth he had been avoiding for years. You know those mornings when you open your eyes, and nothing feels wrong, but nothing feels right either? That was Leo's life. Wake up, eat, scroll, pretend, repeat. A cycle so silent, so normal, so comfortable, that it didn't even feel like a trap. But that's how the comfort zone works. It doesn't attack, it seduces. It doesn't imprison with chains, it lulls you into stillness. People think fear stops them, but no. Comfort does. Comfort whispers gently, "You're fine. Don't change, don't try, don't risk, don't move," and you listen, because comfort feels safe. But Leo knew something was breaking quietly inside him. He could feel his potential suffocating. He could feel dreams fading. He could feel time slipping, drop by drop, second by second, silently disappearing. And then the thought hit him like lightning, if I don't change something today, nothing will ever change. Have you ever felt that? That sudden punch of realization, like someone grabbed your soul and shook it awake? That moment when you finally see that you haven't been living, only existing? Leo felt it. And it terrified him. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it anymore. That's the moment when life begins to change. Not when you get success. Not when you get confidence. Not when you feel ready. No, life changes the moment you understand that waiting is destroying you. Waiting is the slowest death. Waiting is the most silent thief. Leo realized he had been waiting for the perfect moment, but perfect moments don't come. They must be created. He had been waiting for confidence, but confidence doesn't arrive first, action does. He had been waiting to feel ready. But readiness is built from struggle, from imperfect beginnings, from small, shaky, courageous steps. He sat at the edge of his bed, holding his breath, feeling something burning inside, not pain, but awakening. He whispered again, "Leo, what are you doing with your life?" And that single question felt like a mirror held against his soul. He remembered all the dreams he once had, the fire he once carried, the enthusiasm he once lived with. Before routines buried him. Before fear disguised itself as logic. Before hesitation disguised itself as planning. Before comfort disguised itself as safety. It is scary when you realize you are slowly betraying the person you were meant to become. Leo knew he wasn't alone in this. Someone listening to his story right now. Maybe you. Maybe the voice inside your own chest. Maybe the regret you keep ignoring. Feels exactly the same. Because every human has that one quiet fear. What if I waste my life without even realizing it? And the truth is, most people do. Not because they are weak. Not because they are incapable. But because they don't notice the small leaks of time. 5 minutes of scrolling, 10 minutes of hesitation, 15 minutes of overthinking, 1 hour of doing nothing, 1 day of postponing dreams, and suddenly, months disappear, years evaporate, life passes. Leo stood up and walked toward the mirror slowly. He stared into his own tired eyes and felt an uncomfortable truth rising inside. "I don't hate my life," he whispered softly. "I hate that I'm not doing anything to change it." That moment was painful, but necessary. Sometimes the truth hurts not to break you, but to rebuild you. And Leo felt something shift inside, tiny but real, fragile but powerful, weak but alive. A spark. He took a deep breath and placed his hand on the mirror as if trying to touch the version of himself he had lost. A version who once believed, once dreamed, once dared. "Come back," he whispered. "I need you." And for the first time in a long time, he felt something respond. A small echo inside his soul saying, "Then fight for me." That's when he realized, the battle wasn't with the world. It wasn't with circumstances. It wasn't with people. The battle was inside. Between who he was and who he could become. Leo closed his eyes and let every emotion rise. Fear, regret, hope, guilt, desire, exhaustion, everything mixing together until one truth stood above all. If I don't take the first step today, I will stay here forever. No more waiting. No more excuses. No more tomorrow. Just one decision. One moment. One step. And right there, his life quietly shifted direction. I could still feel that spark inside Leo, small but persistent, like a tiny flame refusing to be drowned. It whispered, "You are alive. Now prove it." He took a step forward, not knowing exactly where he was going, not knowing what would happen next. And that was the point. Action doesn't need clarity. It doesn't need perfection. It doesn't wait for confidence to knock. Action comes first, and clarity follows. That realization hit him with more force than any motivational speech ever could. The silence of inaction, the weight of wasted time, it all pressed on him, sharper than any external pressure. And in that moment, Leo understood something crucial. Life doesn't reward intention. Life rewards execution. The moment you act, everything begins to bend toward you. He grabbed his notebook, the one he had abandoned months ago, and started writing. Not plans, not strategies, not perfect steps, just words, raw and honest. Thoughts, ideas, fears, hopes, all spilled onto the paper like a river breaking its dam. It was chaotic, messy, overwhelming, but alive. Leo realized something astonishing. He had forgotten how liberating chaos could be. We try so hard to control everything, to plan everything, to schedule every step. But real growth, real transformation, rarely comes from control. It comes from courage. From allowing yourself to be uncomfortable. From leaning into fear instead of running from it. And Leo, he was ready to lean. Hours passed, but he didn't notice. He didn't feel tired. Not because he had energy, but because he had purpose. The kind of purpose that wakes you in the middle of the night, that haunts your mind until you act, that feels like gravity pulling you forward whether you like it or not. And as he wrote, a pattern emerged, a hidden roadmap within his own thoughts, waiting to be uncovered. It wasn't about following someone else's path. It wasn't about copying success. It was about discovering the path that already existed inside him. The path he had ignored, the path he had doubted, the path he had been too scared to take. And now, he could no longer deny it. Leo looked at the clock. Hours had passed. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the room. And he felt something unfamiliar. Pride. Not arrogance. Not ego. Just quiet pride. Pride for taking the first step. For breaking the spell of stagnation. For challenging the invisible chains that had bound him. He realized, most people never feel this pride. Most people never take the step, because the step is uncomfortable. The step demands courage. The step demands surrender. And surrender is terrifying. But surrender is also freedom. He stood by the window and looked outside. The world seemed unchanged. Cars moved, people walked, the sun dipped below the horizon. And yet, everything had changed for him. Everything had shifted. Because the world doesn't have to notice your transformation. The world never notices. Transformation is internal, silent, personal, invisible. Until one day, people see it. But by then, you are already far ahead. Leo felt a deep gratitude rising inside him. Gratitude for the struggle. Gratitude for the discomfort. Gratitude for the fear. because all of it had brought him to this moment. This tiny, trembling, exhilarating moment, where he chose life over existence, action over waiting, courage over comfort. And then, that whisper again, stronger this time. You are ready. But are you willing to face the truth? Leo flinched, knowing exactly what it meant. The truth is brutal. The truth is relentless. The truth doesn't bend to hope, doesn't care about excuses, doesn't wait for timing. The truth stares at you and asks, what are you doing with the one life you were given? Leo realized that so many people, maybe even himself before today, live as if life is infinite. They waste time believing tomorrow will save them. But tomorrow doesn't exist. There is only now. There is only the moment you decide to face the truth. And that moment changes everything. Leo walked to his desk and picked up his laptop. Every idea he had jotted down was now forming into actions. Not big actions, small, deliberate, focused steps, but steps that would move him forward. Because transformation is not instant. Transformation is incremental. Every choice matters. Every action matters. Every moment counts. And in that awareness, he felt a quiet power rising. The kind of power that doesn't need validation. The kind that doesn't boast. The kind that grows silently, steadily, inevitably. He paused and looked at himself in the reflection of the screen. Leo noticed the subtle difference. His posture, his gaze, his breathing. A small shift, but it was real. The first shift. The spark of change. And he knew, the next steps wouldn't be easy. Resistance would rise. Fear would return. Doubt would knock on the door. People would question him. People would judge. People would doubt. But he understood something crucial now. The world will always test your resolve. The universe doesn't make it easy. It doesn't hand you clarity, comfort, or support on a silver platter. It challenges you. It shakes you. It breaks you. To see if you are willing to rebuild yourself stronger. Leo whispered again, softly, almost like a prayer. I am ready. Whatever comes, I will face it. And for the first time, it didn't feel like a lie. It didn't feel like a wish. It felt like truth. Raw, honest, irreplaceable. And that truth is more valuable than anything the world can offer. More powerful than motivation. More transformative than luck. More lasting than talent. Because truth doesn't fade. Truth doesn't lie. Truth doesn't bend. And once you touch it, once you embrace it, life can never be the same again. He looked around his room one last time before closing the laptop. Everything seemed ordinary. But to Leo, everything was extraordinary. Every object, every sound, every light, every shadow, was a reminder of how far he had come. How small steps, tiny decisions, quiet courage, could become the foundations of a new life. And deep down, he knew, this was only the beginning. Part one of a story that would unfold moment by moment, decision by decision, until the life he had dreamed of, until the person he had imagined, was finally real. The spark was still there, flickering, alive, waiting. And Leo smiled quietly to himself, knowing that he would feed it, protect it, nurture it. Because the moment you understand the truth, the moment you take responsibility for your life, nothing, and no one, can stop you from becoming who you were always meant to be. And in that realization, he felt the subtle thrill of inevitability. The thrill of a life no longer bound by hesitation, fear, or comfort. A life that demanded courage, embraced change, and promised transformation. And that thrill is addictive. The night deepened outside, but inside Leo, a fire had ignited that no darkness could touch. He sat quietly, reflecting on the journey so far. Not the journey he had completed, but the journey he had begun. The first step had shattered the illusion of stagnation. The second step had built momentum, transforming fear into determination. And now, the third step demanded something more. It demanded commitment, not just action. It demanded belief. not just hope. It demanded surrender to the truth he had uncovered, and an unwavering willingness to move forward, no matter the obstacles. He looked around his room again, at the scattered papers, the glowing screen, the half-empty coffee cup. Each item told a story of struggle, of moments where he had almost quit. And yet, he hadn't. He had endured. He had chosen movement over comfort. He had chosen action over inaction. And in that choice, he had discovered an essential truth. The path to transformation isn't glamorous. It isn't instantaneous. It isn't easy. But it is relentless. And it is yours, if you dare to claim it. Leo took a deep breath, letting the tension in his shoulders release. He could feel it, the subtle, almost imperceptible shift in his own energy. His thoughts were sharper, his focus clearer, his heart lighter. That subtle internal alignment is something most people never notice. Most people never pause long enough to feel it. But it was real. And real change always starts quietly, inside, before it radiates outward. He understood that the life he wanted wasn't waiting somewhere out there. It was waiting within him, dormant, asleep, until now. He remembered the countless times he had doubted himself, the moments of hesitation, the nights of fear. They weren't wasted. They had been preparation. They had been teachers, harsh but honest, forcing him to confront his weaknesses, to face his fears, to build resilience. Leo smiled softly, realizing that suffering is not the enemy, it is the catalyst. It shapes you, molds you, demands that you rise above yourself. And the higher you climb, the more you understand that each scar, each struggle, each failure, is evidence of growth. As he stood up, Leo's gaze fell on the notebook that had become his anchor. Every word he had written, every idea he had explored, every plan he had sketched, it was more than ink on paper. It was proof. Proof that he had begun. Proof that action, however small, compounds over time. Proof that the person he was becoming was stronger, sharper, and more alive than the person he had been yesterday. And that realization brought clarity. Change is not about grand gestures. It is about consistency. About showing up. About choosing courage, moment after moment, decision after decision. The whisper returned, soft but insistent. You are ready. Now, what will you do with this life? Leo closed his eyes and let the question sink in. There was no escaping it. No shortcuts. No excuses. And he knew, deep down, that there was only one answer. He would live. Fully. Boldly. Without compromise. Without delay. Without fear. He would embrace the uncertainty, welcome the discomfort, and push forward even when the world seemed indifferent, even when progress was invisible, even when failure loomed large. Because that is the essence of transformation. Choosing to move forward, even when nothing guarantees success. He opened his eyes and saw the city outside, lights flickering like distant stars. Somewhere in the world, people were walking, talking, dreaming, forgetting to act. And he felt a surge of gratitude. Gratitude for his own awakening. Gratitude for the moments that had shaped him. Gratitude for the clarity he had earned. And with that gratitude came responsibility. The responsibility to honor this new understanding, to protect it, to nurture it, to allow it to guide every decision from now on. Leo sat back down and began to write again. But this time, it was different. This time, he wrote with intention, with vision, with purpose. Every word, every sentence, every plan, carried the weight of someone who had glimpsed truth and refused to turn away. He wasn't just dreaming. He wasn't just planning. He was constructing a reality, brick by brick, moment by moment. And in that act of creation, he realized something extraordinary. The world isn't waiting for you to be perfect. The world is waiting for you to begin. And beginning is everything. Hours blurred. Leo didn't notice. He didn't need to. Time was irrelevant. What mattered was the continuity of action, the dedication to growth, the relentless pursuit of becoming. And in that pursuit, he felt something indescribable, a quiet, steady, unshakable power. Not arrogance. Not bravado. Not ego. But the undeniable strength of someone who has faced themselves, embraced their truth, and chosen to live intentionally. When he finally paused, Leo leaned back, exhausted but exhilarated. The room was silent. The city outside seemed unchanged. And yet, everything had changed for him. Because transformation is not external. It is internal. It is invisible at first. But it is profound. And once it begins, it cannot be undone. He whispered softly to himself, almost like a vow. This is only the beginning. I will not stop. I will not compromise. I will not settle. This life is mine, and I will live it fully. And in that vow, Leo felt a surge of certainty, a pulse of courage, a quiet joy that resonated deep within him. He knew the road ahead would be difficult. He knew the challenges would return. He knew fear would knock again and again. But now, he also knew something else. He was ready. And nothing could stop the momentum of a life fully claimed. And that is the moment. The moment when understanding becomes transformation. When thought becomes action. When hesitation becomes courage. When fear becomes fuel. The moment when you stop waiting, stop doubting, stop deferring, and finally, begin to live. That is the moment that changes everything. That is the moment Leo discovered. That is the moment you, too, can discover, if you dare to act, if you dare to face the truth, if you dare to step forward. And as the night deepened, Leo smiled. Not because he had arrived. Not because everything was perfect. But because he had started. And starting is everything.